Welcome back to Talking Dragon Age, the show where I talk about Dragon Age. I recently reread The Masked Empire, and, well, I listened to the audiobook, and I confess, the first time I read it, I was listening to someone else read it aloud on YouTube. And this time I realized how little attention I was paying the first time. I remembered most things correctly, I was mostly just missing details. Although I only got a little more than halfway through it the first time. I knew what happened, and I read a summary, but there it is. But the reason I'm making this video is because about halfway through this most recent reading, I was thinking about Felassan, freaking awesome character, and we all know now he was an agent of the Dread Wolf. But I realized there is a pretty major question they never really answered. What was his mission? Of course, the knee-jerk answer is to obtain access to the Eluvians for Solas. But think about it. Felassan needed access to a central chamber to unlock a huge section of the entire Eluvian labyrinth. He certainly knew where at least some Eluvians were, he just couldn't access them. While he was probably able to unlock one or two, he needed access to that central chamber. As it is, Briala got the access, and he declined to learn the passphrase. But if his only goal was unlocking the Eluvians, then he didn't need Briala, Selene, or anyone else. Imshale was the one who had the keystones, which would have allowed him to find his destination. The Dalish had summoned and bound Imshale, and Felassan had any number of options for getting him to cooperate. Felassan was certainly cunning enough to make a beneficial bargain. More importantly, let's look at the timeline. Briala's parents die, she runs off to attempt to find the Dalish, she runs into Felassan, who takes her under his wing, and later tells her to go back to Selene. About 20 years pass, Gaspard makes his play for the throne, a wedge comes between Briala and Selene, the Dalish summon Imshale somewhere around this time. Adventure. If his mission was accessing the Eluvians, all Felassan really needed was Imshale, or another such entity that could help. He was a dreamer, he could have contacted spirits at will, the same as Solas. He was an ancient elf and part of Solas' spy network. He had the resources to figure this out. That's not a criticism, it's just an observation, because I think there's more to his story than just accessing the Eluvians. Why did he involve himself with Briala at all? What was he doing for 20 years? What was his mission? Well, we know he routinely received information about the Orlesian court from Briala, and he passed some of that information on to the Dalish. Now, I honestly don't know what use the Dalish could have had for any information she could provide. All I can think of is that they may have known where was safe to travel, or if any elven ruins had been discovered. But that's a big if, and probably wouldn't do the Dalish much good, since human scholars would already be there by that point. More importantly, Felassan probably passed all this information onto the Wolfpack, Solas' spy network. We know Solas had spies all over Thedas, including the Magisterium. So Felassan would likely receive high-level intel about the Orlesian court from Briala, then pass that on to other members of the Wolfpack. The thing is, I'm not sure how this information benefited them. The plan was to use the orb to tear down the veil, let the current world burn in the raw chaos it caused, and then Solas would set about creating an elven utopia. Unlocking its orb and using its power was the plan. Not just a plan, but the plan. Best I can tell, here is the order of events concerning the orb. Solas uses it to create the veil, which depleted its power. Solas fell asleep for at least 1,000 years, while the orb essentially charged back up with magical energy. Once it was completely charged, he could use it again. Problem was, after his slumber, he was too weak to unlock it himself and needed Corypheus to do it. The plan was for Corypheus to die in doing so, and then Solas would reclaim the now unlocked orb to carry out his plan. So, I'm not sure why the goings-on of the Orlesian court mattered. I get he wanted to stay up to date on things, and that he wanted to be prepared in case anything went wrong. But we can see that his plan hinged upon the orb. And then there's the matter of the Eluvians. Felassan was supposed to gain access, but he ultimately betrayed Solas. But why did Solas need him to unlock the Eluvians? All he needed was the orb. After he had that, he could have gotten access to the Eluvians again himself, but they weren't necessary to his plan. The Crossroads may have been, since Morrigan explains that the veil could be torn down from there. Still don't know how she knew that. But Solas didn't need the entire network for that. He only needed one Eluvian that connected there. I think. I mean, he could have had one of his agents infiltrate Briala's network. Actually, he probably did. My point is, I don't think Felassan's mission was to access the network. I think Briala and company stumbled upon that, and Felassan was along for the ride. His duty would have been to gain the access, but it's not why he was there in the first place. Alright, so let's do a quick recap. Felassan's mission wasn't just to unlock the Eluvians, but to receive information about the Orlesian court. That could be why he told Briala to go back to Selene all those years ago. He would pass this information on to the Dalish to maintain a relationship there, and he probably received information from them also. He would pass all that information he received back to the Wolfpack so they could stay up to date on anything and everything that could potentially impact their plan. Felassan was supposed to gain access to the Eluvians, but in the end he decided Briala deserved the chance to use them to help her people. He saw what Solas didn't, that the people of this world are people.
His friend had to die because he thought they were people. A slow arrow breaks in the sad wolf's jaws.
Oof. So perfect. The book takes place shortly before winter in 940 Dragon. Solas says he woke up a year before he joined the Inquisition, which was around late Kingsway, early Harvestmere. What this would mean is that Solas awoke shortly after Felassan died, perhaps even because Felassan failed. But then we come back to why he didn't override access to the Eluvians right away if they were important enough to kill Felassan over. So what do you guys think? Were the Eluvians necessary to Solas' original plan? We know they are to his new plan, but did he need them from the beginning? So that's it for now, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to comment and like, and remember, Tala Nadas.